All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started today. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Ron Jackson. I'm currently the Vice President of Student Affairs here at Brooklyn College. I want to thank you all for joining us today as we start to address questions and concerns regarding the impending return to campus. Before we begin, I do want to thank and acknowledge the undergraduate student government, the graduate student organization, the Office of Student Affairs, the Office of Facilities, and the Office of Environmental Health and Safety, who all collaborated in the planning of this session. Now I'd like to turn the mic over to Ikra Nahid and Doris Park, who will moderate the next session of today's event. Ikra and Doris.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ikra. I'll be your USG representative for today. And I'm going to start by introducing the panelists. So starting off, who we heard from is VP Ron Jackson. He is the Vice President for Student Affairs. Next, we have Lillian O'Reilly. She is the Vice President for Enrollment Management and Retention. We also have our Chief Diversity Officer, Anthony Brown. And we have our Chief of Public Safety, Donald Wentz. Also on our panel are some subject matter experts. To start off, we have Carrie Sadovnik. She is the Director of Environmental Health and Safety. And we have Doordarshini Lee, Acting Director of Facilities and Planning. Last but not least, we also have David Best, IT and Network Manager. We'll be transitioning back to VP Jackson for a meeting format.
Thank you. So just to go over real briefly about the format and the agenda for today. So we did get some prepared questions that students submitted. So we'll go through those first. We'll also then do a moderated Q&A from the live audience, including the chat, and then we'll do a wrap up and thank you. Just so you know, this session will be recorded and transcribed. For those who do need to use the transcription now, if you check at the bottom of your screen, just say live transcript. If you want to click that, you can get closed captioning. Also, to go over a little bit about the meeting etiquette, please mute your microphones to minimize distraction to other participants. Post all your questions in the chat, but we ask you to wait until after the Q&A session to post those questions because your question may be addressed during the formal Q&A session. Also, to just put it right on out there, if you follow the news at all, you've seen the mandate that came from the Governor Cuomo regarding the mask and vaccinations. We don't have a lot of information about that right now. We're still waiting to get guidance from CUNY in terms of a vaccine mandate as well as mask mandate on campus. As soon as we know more, we'll let you know. And so some of those questions may come up today, but like I said, as things evolve, we'll communicate to students how that's going to play out on our actual campus.
We're going to transition over now to Carrie Sadovnik to discuss the return to campus plans.
Good afternoon, everyone. So thank you for that introduction, Doris and Akira and VP Jackson. I want to thank you for inviting me to sort of give an introduction on what we've been up to this past year. It has been a long year. And we've been doing a lot of planning. Immediately after the lockdown, the college and President Anderson convened a reentry review board and a reopening committee. And that body does all the planning work that is often mentioned in her letters to the campus community. One key aspect of that that sort of it contains a lot of our thinking and our approach over this past school year is our reentry plan, which was posted on the website in August 2020 after it was reviewed and approved by CUNY. And what this plan does is it sets out our principles that are guiding our return to more full operations. And as you can see from this, oops, I'm not seeing it myself, but as you can see from the presentation, this is based on a staged approach and scenario planning. So we know that this has been an incredibly fast-paced, moving, there's daily updates, both at the national level, at the state level, and the city level, and university level. And we operate within that sort of nested set of guidelines. We're always looking to CDC for what is the science behind this pandemic, and then recognizing that we are, CUNY is unique, and we're going to talk about that in terms of our population and our concerns. So based on that just overarching landscape, we have 3 scenarios which we are using to help us plan for the fall. Where we are today is scenario A, where we are really primarily online, and the majority of our staff and faculty are remote. Students are remote, and there's really only been a small handful of those classes which require being back on campus, either because of the unique nature of materials and equipment and space that the campus offers, and that's been in the sciences and the art department and music and theater. So now on to scenario B, which is where we continue to anticipate for the fall. And that's a expanded, but we are, I want to just emphasize that with the backdrop of these, the vaccine mandate being issued by the governor last week, and then the new guidance out on fully vaccinated individuals, the college continues, we are going to continue to adhere to those public health guidelines that we know work. And so the scenario B really establishes how we would expand our operations, but not fully reopen to 100% occupancy. And so under this scenario, we are looking at up to a 50% occupancy in our densest locations, and you can see that reflected in the registrar and course offerings. Now, I just also want to say one more thing about the Reentry Review Board. This week we're excited to welcome 2 students. We've expanded our the committee's membership to include representatives from the union, PSC, and then also we have been able to welcome on to that committee 2 students. One is Kendall Morrell from the School of Education, and Wade Detellian from the Koppelman School of Business. So it's really important that we have these student voices on this committee as we continue to revise and refine our guidance for the fall. I think that's where I'm gonna pivot back to the moderator to begin the Q&A piece.
Thank you, Carrie, for that explanation. Thank you all the panelists for being here to answer these questions. So we're going to start with the question for Carrie once again. What is being done to reassure me that CUNY can safeguard my health if I choose to return to campus?
Okay, so thanks again. So the first thing I would say is that we are staying informed. We meet regularly. The reopening committee, or the RRB, that we have convened, meets weekly, and everyone on this committee, many of the people on this committee, are part of additional working groups and committees that meet weekly with CUNY to stay afoot of how changes to national and state recommendations might affect the CUNY guidelines. And this includes health and safety, my health and safety counterparts, facilities, human resources, student affairs. This is, there is a lot happening, and this is because of the emerging nature, continuing emerging nature, being on abreast of the new information as it is released is really important. We initially put in place and will continue to adhere to measures which protect our people, our places, and we've established processes to both prevent the introduction of COVID cases on campus, as well as prevent and minimize COVID transmission once you are on campus. And we, have been very lucky, and I think it speaks to the work that everyone on the panel has done, as well as facilities in particular, in keeping our facilities and public safety and keeping our campus safe.
One bread there too. I mean, that one bread. Yeah, one of those.
Thank you. So I just want to say we are continuing to promote and put into practice 4 primary preventive measures to reduce the risk on campus, which is please stay home if you're sick. Our health screening through an app called Everbridge is a key piece of how we do this. We continue to adhere to physical distancing. We continue to adhere to the use of face coverings on campus, and then healthy hygiene, hand hygiene, cough hygiene, and ensuring we have all the right touchless faucets and paper towel dispensers. This is where I just, in my last message to staff and faculty, we talked about how we strongly encourage vaccines, and vaccines continue to be a way for us to, it's probably our best bet to get to as normal as possible. We recognize that, everybody has a different situation. And so until we've eradicated the vaccine, we're going to have to apply these layers of safety on campus. So one of the things that we are doing, and a key piece that has become more in the forefront of our minds, is the importance of fresh air and ventilation. And we've been reviewing on campus and making adjustments and enhancements. Enhancements are still underway, and upgrading where we can. And then if necessary, this has been, ventilation is informing our level of occupancy on campus. You can go to the next slide, please. The facilities department has, all of our staff are working together to continue with building hygiene and maintenance. We are deeply involved in bringing in more touchless features, such as hand sanitizers, which are have been installed at every building lobby and at elevator lobbies and at key locations, paper towel dispensers and faucets. And we are hoping to replace many of our water drinking faucets with or fountains with bottle filling stations. Custodial services has been going through the campus and conducting a deep clean and dusting of classrooms and more recently offices. There is a lot of new signage on campus that you will see, including max occupancy, reminders and visual cues to stay apart and maintain that social distancing, And as I mentioned, when you come to campus, there are banners that reiterate the need to wear a face covering while on campus, inside and out. And then just a nod to additional measures that are taken to maintain our building systems, and that includes flushing our water, making sure that we, there's been quite a lot of, or let's say, less occupancy on campus than in previous years. It's quite a stark difference from those bustling spring days, but we still need to maintain our buildings so that they're ready for when you come back. Go to the next slide, please.
Thank you, Carrie, for outlining those safety measures. The next question is for Durdarshini Lee. What are the plans for social distancing and/or occupancy limits for high traffic areas, including classrooms, offices, shared spaces, hallways, bathrooms, and elevators?
Thank you, Doris. So we've been conducting space analysis campus-wide, and in order to determine occupancy limits, we've been applying the social distancing guidelines recommended by CDC and by CUNY. So in spaces with mechanical ventilation, we're using 6-foot safety margins to determine the maximum occupancy. And in spaces with less than optimal ventilation, we're using a 12-foot safety margin as per CUNY's reentry guidelines. In light of the recent changing guidelines from CDC and CUNY, we're also now planning for a possible scenario of setting occupancy limits using 3-foot safety margins in spaces with mechanical ventilation and 6-foot safety margins in spaces with less than optimal ventilation. So we're kind of doing these two scenarios in tandem. So for classrooms, if we could bring up this slide, please. These are two examples of different classrooms. I don't know if you see it. Oh, okay, here it comes. Two different classroom types, an auditorium and a typical smart classroom with tablet armchairs. So on the left, you see Woody Tanger. It normally seats 144 people, but if we maintain a minimum of 6 feet between seats, it can seat 19 people. 2615 James is on the right. It normally holds 25 students. With a 6-foot safety margin, it can accommodate 7 students. So if we use 3-foot social distancing, Woody Tanger will seat 31 people, and 2615 James will accommodate 12 students. So the final decision on how we'll be proceeding for fall, whether with 6-foot social distancing or 3-foot social distancing, it's still pending. And I think it depends on kind of the numbers in our area and national, state, CUNY guidelines, et cetera. So similar to the instructional spaces, we're using 6-foot and 12-foot safety limits, or 3-foot and 6-foot, depending on the ventilation, in order to plan occupancy for lounges, labs, the library, other shared spaces. In hallways, by virtue of limiting the overall capacity in the building, hallways and other common spaces will be less dense. And in addition, as Carrie said, we have visual cues for social distancing. There will be messaging, there will be signage, 6-foot or 3-foot markers, directional arrows throughout the buildings, just to remind everybody to maintain social distancing. Bathrooms and elevators, the buildings and floors that are currently in use, the maximum occupancy levels have been established and posted. Like in the bathrooms, some stalls and fixtures have been taken out of service temporarily and marked in order to maintain social distancing. So this will be done for all the campus buildings for the fall.
Thank you, Durdarshini Lee. So our next question following up with that is, how will safety measures such as mask wearing and social distancing be enforced on campus? And this is directed to Carrie again.
I just saw someone mention this issue in the chat. Such an important issue and one that is vexing. First of all, I want to acknowledge that the situation really is in flux. And that said, and at least for the foreseeable future, mask use and social distancing will continue to be required on Brooklyn College campus. And there are no changes to this that in the immediate future. And this is also, acknowledging that this policy may be different than other businesses and the city and the state and the federal level, but because we're unique, we have thousands of people coming from different neighborhoods, living in having different home situations, taking public transit. We need to know that the virus is, that we are keeping everyone safe. And with that in mind, we are going to continue to take a more precautionary approach to the safety of our campus community. With that said, it is our expectation that students, staff, and faculty adhere to campus COVID safety rules and practices. How do we do that? The first thing is to make sure that everyone is aware and informed of these requirements and expectations. We have a video that we created for the spring semester, and that's been required viewing by students who and faculty who come on campus for in-person classes this spring semester. So I imagine we'll do something similar for the fall. And similarly, staff and faculty as employees do require some level of training. We're going to need to do this kind of information sharing and training on various fronts. And it's something that we're in conversation with communication, and but we recognize that many students get a lot of their information about the campus and news directly from their faculty. So if you have suggestions on how to make that more, how to bridge that gap of communicating with students, it's not something that perhaps my office does on a day-to-day basis as in my administrative role. I lean on others, and I'm sure that we would love to hear from people as to their recommendation. I do want to also just say that regarding enforcement, my opinion, and I would say the administration's opinion on this has been that for students, it's really important that we have peer-to-peer education and support in this manner. And what we saw this spring is that we were able to hire for public health ambassadors, student workers who have been on campus to assist us in handing out masks as students come back to campus. Certainly have been helpful in getting the word out about the vaccine and eligibility, and even being able to sign people up for the vaccine. We're uncertain that that's going to be something that we're going to be able to support for the fall, but I think the concept is there, and that's going to be a piece to it. Additionally, we work with other partners on campus, public safety and student affairs, and engaging individuals who might not be adhering to safe practices, HR as well, in advising the person and reporting, monitoring the situation, and working with the appropriate office as to next steps. There are, CUNY has I believe a code of conduct during the COVID pandemic, and that's something that we should be, making sure people are aware of. Thanks.
Thank you, Carrie. Our next question is for Chief Wenz. Many Brooklyn College students rely on public transportation to commute to and from campus. What resources are available to promote safety around campus and late at night?
Good afternoon. We'll be patrolling the perimeter of our campus in a number of ways: by foot patrol, bicycle patrol, and motorized vehicles 24 hours a day. In addition to that, we operate a shuttle and escort service, which goes to and from the campus to the junction at Flatbush Avenue and the Newkirk Avenue subway station. The only thing we ask is to call our office at 718-951-5511 to let us know when you want to be picked up and where you want to be picked up so we can make the arrangements. In addition to that, I encourage everyone to visit our website. On our website, we have more information on the patrols that we conduct. Our annual security report is there, as are crime prevention tips and suggestions.
Thank you, Mr. Runs. So for our next item, we're going to be pivoting to our Chief Diversity Officer, Anthony Brown, and we wanted to acknowledge a sentiment that students have expressed concern over recent racially motivated attacks.
Thank you. And this is a concern that's been brought to my attention. It's come forth to my office. And this is very important. And I want to say up front, we here at Brooklyn College, we talk a lot about diversity and inclusion. And diversity, certainly it means you, especially our students. And inclusion, it speaks to you having the equal opportunity to take advantage of our educational program, regardless of race, regardless of religion. So I certainly understand those concerns. And I want to let you know that we will do whatever we can here at the college to make sure that you're not discriminated against in any way. As to the question regarding the fears, how do we deal with people who are concerned that you may be attacked on your way to school? We will deal with that in a very sort of individual way. If you have a specific concern, feel free to reach out to my office or reach out to a chair or the vice president of student affairs. We all work very closely together. So we don't want you to feel like if you contact person A that you're contacting the wrong person. If you contact one of us, we will definitely address your individual needs. So again, please do not hesitate to reach out to my office if you have a specific concern as it relates to your safety regarding race, religion, and any of those things that we call protected class. Thank you.
Thank you. For our next question, it's for Carrie. How will cleanliness be addressed on campus, particularly regarding bathrooms, classrooms, and shared spaces?
So I want to acknowledge that someone in the chat mentioned, and it is true that CDC acknowledges that the risk of infection through contaminated surfaces and objects is generally considered low and not thought to be the principal mode of infection. But that said, we still think it is, and we know that it is still important to continue to have a level of cleanliness and where it is called for additional disinfection, such as if there is a positive case on campus. Just quickly, early on, the college implemented an enhanced schedule of cleaning and disinfecting with a focus on high-touch surfaces and shared surfaces and public spaces. So that includes time clocks for employees, elevator buttons, handrails and door push plates, and doorknobs. And so that's really the focus on in terms of additional or enhanced cleaning as of today. And then in addition, when we have a positive case on campus, we continue the practice, and this is in accordance with CDC, depending on when that person was on campus and in those specific locations where the person spent a significant amount of time, we will do additional cleaning or disinfection if it's a very recent visit and presence on campus. Just again, we use EPA approved disinfectants, and we are providing throughout the campus sanitizing wipes for the purpose of wiping down shared equipment or objects, and for use in classrooms as preferred, and also computer labs as well.
Thank you. So our next question is to VP O'Reilly. So remote learning has provided better course scheduling flexibility that provides opportunities for increased family responsibilities, childcare, and employment. So the questions are, what is being done to ensure that students needing flexibility will be able to receive it for fall 2021? And also, will remote classes remain remote?
Hi, everyone. It's so great to see everybody. This is an extremely interesting question, and a question that most students do have. For the fall 2021, there are over 3,600 classes being offered. Of those 3,600 classes, over 2,000 classes are currently in online format. So there's a great deal of flexibility in the schedule. The schedule has options available for all different student preferences. So there are the online classes, there are some classes completely in person, and there are some classes that are hybrid, which is a combination of online and in-person learning. I also wanted to mention that if any students have any difficulty finding a class that they need at Brooklyn College or in the format that they would prefer, please take advantage of the CUNY e-permit system. Through the e-permit system, you can take a course at any other CUNY campus and it counts for credit at Brooklyn College. So please, please remember that if you ever encounter any difficulty. And of course, please don't hesitate to contact my office directly and we will help you in any way that we can.
Thank you, VP O'Reilly. Our next question is for VP Jackson. Returning to campus will require readjustment. So what kind of campus support services will be provided to mitigate anxiety or triggers around transitioning back to school in larger numbers?
Sure. So currently all of our support services are available now, including personal counseling in our health clinic. Beginning August 2nd, all offices will be returning to campus in some form or fashion. So students can be seen via telemedicine or in person by appointment. So stay tuned, more information will be coming about that over the summer through President Anderson's communications, but all services will be available to students. And we're also able to do via Zoom. So whatever preference the students have in terms of communicating with us, we'll make that available.
Thank you, VP Jackson. Our next question is back to Carrie. This simple question, where can I eat on campus safely without a mask?
My unmute finger is a little slow today. That's a really good question. We, first of all, for the fall semester, we do not anticipate the cafeteria being opened. So that's one matter. But if you're bringing food from off campus, we really will encourage people to, when weather permits, to sit outside, socially distanced, and to eat outside as weather permits, and if that works for you. Otherwise, we are working on plans for how to accommodate that eating and drinking on campus for those who don't have private spaces or break rooms. What we've established for staff who don't have private offices, we've established break rooms on campus. I imagine that we will be doing the same for the fall and for students. The main thing is to, eating in a socially distanced way and to wear the mask until you're ready to eat, and then replacing it at the end of the meal. And again, using water bottle filling stations rather than water fountains. And also we will be, we've been in the process of replacing our vending machines with touchless vending machines. And so those will provide some options for food and beverages on campus. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Our next question is for VP Jackson. Where will I have access to safe study spaces on campus, such as the library, and for how long?
Sure. So currently, if students need places to study, they can make appointments for the web, for either the computer lab or there's private study spaces in there. That's available right now. We'll look to continue that in the fall, but we're also looking at adding up some additional spaces, such as the library and possibly in that cafeteria area to allow students to study. And I think there were some questions in the chat. That would be available also if students have classes on the same day and they need time in between classes. We're looking at making those spaces available for students as kind of a place to be as opposed to leaving the campus. There will be some restrictions to that. Like I said, right now it's by appointment, but it's an ongoing question. We're continuing to work on that, but we will make sure that there are spaces available on campus for students to study, even if they don't necessarily have classes, but they just need a private place outside of their home environment.
Thank you, VP Jackson. Our next question is directed at David Best. While attending in-person and remote classes occurring on the same day, students will need access to reliable Wi-Fi. What is being done to ensure this is addressed?
That's a very good question. As most of us who have used Wi-Fi at home have come to learn that there are many factors that are outside of your local control that affect that. But luckily, there are many things that are. So let's just start off by taking a look at our pre-pandemic status. On campus, we've got about 320 some odd access points, which is about 588 discrete radios. And on average, we used to have about 4,000 concurrent devices, peaking at about 6,000 maximum. So looking at it from that perspective, the main issue going forward isn't really one of capacity, but it's one of positioning. Our pre-pandemic priority for deployment had always been based on user density. Where can we find the most users in the smallest space, and let's deploy there. At present, that's out the window, and our priority now is looking at where can people use Wi-Fi safely. So this relates back to things that Carrie and Darshini have mentioned, and that we're working to identify and add services to areas that are amenable to students working and studying. We're looking very closely at the outdoor spaces. Of our hundreds of radios, we have a good mix of older and newer ones. So one of the things that we're working on is to replace all of our old Wi-Fi 4 access points with newer Wi-Fi 5 so that we can increase the range and the capacity of what already exists as well. We're working very hard to increase the reliability by reducing the effects of things like environmental factors, by augmenting the infrastructure. Anybody who's been on campus for any period of time will know that we periodically have rooms that will overheat and we have to turn things off. So we have upgraded a lot of the equipment to use hardened devices that can tolerate much higher temperatures, meaning that the likelihood of having to power an entire building offline is now very remote. One of the side effects of that is now we've got the ability and the plans to increase the available bandwidth going to each building by about 500%. Once that part's done, the next step is that we are looking to use these same kind of newer hardened devices to provide the end support for access points. Therefore, we'll be able to give them dedicated bandwidth apart from what's being used currently by people sitting in their offices, so that if there is any sort of environmental issues where temperatures are going out of spec or whatever, we will still be able to keep the Wi-Fi systems fully online. We're also working on new trunking technology that allows us to do immediate controller failover. That allows for things like if we need to do upgrades or whatever, we won't have to take the system offline, so we will keep online a much higher percentage of the time. And lastly is we've been able to secure pricing from our vendors, which is now offering the current technology, which is Wi-Fi 6, at about what we're paying for Wi-Fi 5. So the financial impediments that were there to moving into the latest and greatest cutting edge is now pretty much gone. We've already built the infrastructure to support it, and we are going to be implementing in some of the outdoor areas very soon. So there's lots of moving parts, but we think that we have it laid out so that we cascade, and each step that we go, we get to build on and get more and more till we get to as reliable and as robust as we possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Our next question is for VP O'Reilly. Students are concerned about getting into classes needed for graduation that are only being offered in person. What options are available?
Hi. Again, that's a very interesting question, and that's something that's of concern to so many students. You know, one of the options, as I mentioned before, is if a class is being offered that is not in the format that the student needs, you can explore a course through the e-permit system. I mean, this gives you access to courses being offered at all the CUNY schools. So you could see, for example, if the course that you needed is available online at another CUNY school, and it will be accepted at Brooklyn College, of course. There is also something else, and again, I cannot speak, you know, for the academic side of the house. I don't mean to speak on behalf of the faculty, but sometimes in extraordinary circumstances, if you speak to a department chair, the department chair might be able to do something called a course substitution, which basically, depending upon your transcript and your major, might be able to look at a course that you might be able to take in lieu of another course. So it's always good in these situations to consult with the chair of the department of your major, you know, to see what options are available.
Thank you, VP O'Reilly. The next question is directed to VP Jackson. Students that have relocated or live outside of New York City are concerned about needing to find local housing for themselves or for family members. Will they need to move back for fall 2021?
It depends. So if you're taking, you know, it's going to be a personal decision. So if you're taking all classes online, you can still stay wherever you are because you're not going to be required to come on campus. If you are taking in person classes, as you may or may not know, our relationship with the residence hall is no longer there, but we do have a relationship with St. George. It's a more traditional residence hall that's downtown Brooklyn. They have safety measures that's in place as well. So if you go onto the college's website and look under housing in Brooklyn, you will see the link to the St. George, and they offer very competitive rates for students. So it's really up to each individual student what's going to be the best thing for you, but there is housing available for students who need it.
Thank you, VP Jackson. Our last question for the previously submitted question category is also for VP Jackson. Will athletics be open for the fall 2021 semester?
Okay, so I'm going to split that into two parts. So in terms of the recreational facility, in terms of the gym, that determination has not been made as of yet. We'll be able to make more decisions about that in the summertime. In terms of intercollegiate athletics in our sports teams, right now that is being handled through CUNY. So we have submitted a return to athletics plan so that we can begin playing sports again in the fall, but that's all going to come down to CUNY's decision. But it's looking like we will have some sports available in the fall. So stay tuned. That's going to be another summer piece because these are continuously moving. And once we have our plan approved by CUNY, we can then move forward.
So that concludes our previously submitted questions category. We will now transition to VP Jackson one more time for the live Q&A.
All right, thanks Doris and Ikram. So we've been busily recording all of your questions and I am going to try my best to get to them all. So first, starting off, there was a question, will there be dedicated locations on campus for students and faculty who have online classes in between in-person classes, for those who have breaks in between in-person classes? So we partially addressed that. So yes, there will be spaces available on campus. The one piece that I didn't answer, people were asking about the length of time. Right now, you can make appointments for 1 hour, but we are, and I think this was also in the chat, can you do extended reservations? We're looking at that process now. So over the summer, we'll be able to kind of give more direction, but we want to make sure that as many students need space, we'll be able to have it. So we're not going to block off entire space for one person if we have a high need. So we kind of like look at it as a case-by-case basis, but the spaces will be available. On to the next question. This question is coming from Ryan, and Ryan actually wants to answer that question in person.
Hi, I hope you said Brian, right?
Ryan.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't hear too well. So hi everyone, my name is Ryan and I'm a freshman in the Scholars Program and I'm also a pre-med. And so this upcoming fall, I won't be able to get the vaccine and it's not of necessarily by choice. And I also live with people who are not of age to get the vaccine and just cannot get the vaccine for, health reasons and other reasons. And so as I'm a pre-med, I'm required to take organic chemistry with lab next semester. And I'm registered for that currently. But I see, and I heard through the grapevine that there's only going to be online labs and in-person labs and in-person recitation classes. So I was wondering if Brooklyn College is going to be accommodating students who are in my situation, who are also high risk for getting COVID, and offering a completely online modality for labs, or will we have to delay our taking that class, which would then delay graduation and whatnot.
Okay, who wants to take that one? VP O'Reilly or Carrie?
I will take that, Ron. Again, that's a very, very interesting question. And, at this point, I believe that most of the lab classes, if not all, have some in-person component on it. What I strongly urge is that you speak to the chair of your department and that, you discuss this concern and, see what can be perhaps worked out for you. Again, please keep on checking the schedule because again, like it's in, there are changes that are still being made. So, there is a possibility, I cannot guarantee this, that perhaps a lab or two might be completely online. So please keep on checking the schedule, but I strongly urge you to please speak to your department chair.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Good luck.
I'll just weigh in very briefly, but Ryan, your situation is one of the main reasons why until we have full herd immunity, or we know that we have, where the risk is such that we really are able to say that everyone is safe to come on campus using public transit, and we know vaccines are fully effective against some of the variants that have been emerging. This is why we continue to adhere to mask mandate, our mask policy on campus, and use of social distancing, as well as other public health measures.
May I ask a quick follow-up question?
Sure.
So I just saw quick in the chat that someone had wrote that they already spoke to the chairperson about having an online modality, and the chairperson said that there's no plans. So how would you advise students in my situation going forward, for taking these types of classes?
I think, the best thing to do is, to follow up with the dean of the School of Natural and Behavioral Sciences, Dean Tolius, or Dean Suarez, who's the associate dean, who frequently works with students, and express your concerns and, see what could possibly be worked out.
You said that was the Dean of Natural Sciences?
The Dean of Natural and Behavioral Sciences.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate it.
Either Dean Tolius or Dean Suarez.
Okay, thank you guys.
Yeah, and I just want to add, so the mandated vaccines, we don't have a lot of guidance about that yet. And so we will know, hopefully by this summer, what that means. So right now we do have mandated, mumps, measles, and rubella, and we do have exceptions to those cases. So there might be the possibility that there are also exceptions to mandated vaccinations for COVID. We'll know that as it comes up. That will be a conversation that you'll have with our health programs. That's the office that would be tracking the vaccinations and will be able to tell you if you're going to be allowed an exemption or not. Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Moving on to the next question. With the knowledge that vaccination is going to be required for all SUNY and CUNY campuses, and the CDC reporting that surface contamination is virtually non-existent, why does there seem to be an emphasis on sanitizers, dusting, etc., when what is really required is herd immunity? I believe Carrie answered that question, but do you want to follow up with anything else, Carrie?
Well, one of the things that has been very clear, that this pandemic has made very clear, is that public health guidance and recommendations and science, as we learn more, changes. And so we have to prepare ourselves to adapt to new and changing recommendations that impact our lives and impact how we operate our campus. And we've done that while remaining very clear that we want to be precautionary in our approach and conservative in our approach to ensuring safety of everyone on campus. So we quickly pivoted to focus on ventilation. As we learned more about transmission rates and likelihood from the virus. So I appreciate that question. And it continues to be a concern for some, but it is not our primary focus.
Thank you, Carrie. Next question. Why is vaccination mandated for CUNY and SUNY students and not private colleges? Why are we not given the choice? Why are we being mandated? So just to kind of clarify that, I think we talked about that a little while ago. It's a state mandate. And also there are some private colleges that actually already mandated for their students, not just their students, but faculty and staff as well, that they're all going to be mandated to have the vaccine before they return to campus. So as more information comes out, you're going to see every college and university grapple with this question. So it's not going to be something that's just CUNY and SUNY. Moving on to the next question. Will BC be providing masks to those students, faculty, staff, administrator, etc., who forget to bring one? Carrie?
Sure. We have a ready supply of both reusable and disposable, or really more disposable masks. And we have boxes of those available at the gates. And we have a supply room that we're having our public health ambassadors make sure that anybody who is coming on campus has access to them. But it's really those points of entry at the campus gates where if someone arrives without a mask, they will be offered one without hesitation and for free, of course.
Thanks, Carrie. Next question. In the fall semester, 2 of my classes are hybrid. What does that mean? VP O'Reilly.
Hi, hybrid means that your class is a combination of online learning and in-person instruction. However, it could vary significantly from class to class. Some classes might have more of an in-person presence, and other classes perhaps might only meet once or might just meet for a test. So, again, there is some in-person requirement, but there's no like uniform standard among classes as to how much of the time the class will actually meet in person. So it might just be for a midterm or a final, for example.
Thank you. Last spring, before the total close down, we had periodic close downs of the entire campus based on case reports. Are there scenarios that might lead to a temporary total close down of the campus? Carrie.
This is an excellent example of where guidance was developing as we learn more about the virus and what is, the modes of transmission and how best to respond to individuals who were sick or who had been infectious while on campus. That is no longer the need for closure of an entire campus, let alone an entire building, is no longer recommended and is not a practice that we have been following for 6 months or more. It's really, it depends on the infectious period. So CDC says that a person is infectious 48 hours before they either, if they're asymptomatic, before they test positive, or 48 hours before they become symptomatic. This is where I'm going to say we are requiring that people who are coming on campus report if they are if they test positive. And this is the purpose of, I think somebody was asking the question about, are we taking temperatures? We are not taking temperatures. We are relying on individual attestations through the use of an app called Everbridge, which asks you a series of questions similar to what is asked if you go to the doctor or seek hair care in a salon, etc. And because everyone is a little bit different in determining their day-to-day body temperature. So it's really important that we have this assurance that people are reporting when they become sick or if they test positive. With vaccinations, that will continue to be true, as we've seen that there are unfortunately some breakthrough cases, but certainly less in number and less in severity. I think I answered the question.
Thanks, Carrie. All right, next question. Will there be classes on the quad? VP O'Reilly or Carrie? I don't believe we are scheduled for anything.
I don't believe that we're planning for that. I think classes will be in the normal classroom setting.
That's my understanding as well. I know we've looked at Wi-Fi capacity on the quad, and I think David Best had discussed that to some degree, where we still have some challenges. If we're able to assure that we have sufficient capacity for students to sit for some period of time in the quad, then we will make arrangements to have a covered space for some portion of that. But no classes are at this point scheduled.
Next question. Is there a designated office to answer students' question in reference to mandating vaccination before returning to BC? So that would be the health programs office. It's the same office that you submitted your MMR results to. We don't have a lot of details right now, but that's the office that, if we do go with mandated vaccinations, would be responsible for tracking all of that for us. So that's health programs, and that's out of the my division, actually, student affairs. Next question. Will the Wi-Fi be able to handle video calls? The usage pre-pandemic wasn't reliable for heavy usage. Is there any change in that?
Okay, I guess I can address that. The answer to that would be, it depends really on where you are and how far you are from one of the radios. All of the radios are set to allow any user to use up to, I think, 10 megabits. And like this call that we're on right now is using about 2 megabits. So it's enough for any sort of video call. It's enough for high definition video if you're watching Netflix, any of that would work. But of course, if you are not within range of the access point, or if there's a lot of other traffic that's, competing with you, then that would detract from your ability to stream at a high bit rate.
Thank you. Next question. 2,000 classes out of 36,000 are online. That's not even 10%. We are still paying full tuition for students who do not want the vaccine and choose to study completely online. Will tuition charges change? VP O'Reilly?
No, the tuition will remain the same because there's still instruction, there's still the same cost involved, regardless of the instructional modality.
Next question. If we need to make an appointment for a space to take our online class after an earlier in-person class on campus, is there an option to secure the space for a long-term schedule instead of making an appointment daily? I think I talked about that. Right now, the appointments are only available for 1 hour at a time, but we are looking at possibly extending that based on need and demand. Next question. I'm a rising sophomore and I have yet to ever go onto campus. When will I be able to get my ID card and give in my forms that ensure that I am safe to join campus? So in terms of ID cards, so you can't do that right now while the campus is closed. Chief Wentz, I believe, is on the call.
Yes, I'm here, Ron. As far as ID cards are concerned, we can make arrangements for someone to download the Navigator app and have them submit to us a photo, and they can activate their Navigator app and we can get it put onto the ID card. As far as hard copy ID cards, we have to wait and see what the requirements are going to be as far as personnel and staff and being able to maintain social distancing and being able to print out hard copy ID cards. So that we don't know about yet, but there is a procedure. They can contact our office about getting a Navigator on their phone and adhering a picture to it.
Thank you. And in terms of turning in forms that ensure that I'm safe to join campus, I'm assuming that's talking about the mandated vaccinations. Stay tuned for that. If we do go that way, we'll let you know what you need to do in order to access campus. Next question, do you guys offer laptops? Yes, that can be obtained right now. David, I don't know if you want to talk quickly about that.
Ron, I can jump in quickly.
Okay.
So that resource I've shared in the chat, I will post it again about our device distribution program.
Thank you. While attending all residency classes and campus becomes shut down, how will my financial aid be impacted? Marcus, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So while campus is shut down, your financial aid really is not impacted outside of, if you're enrolled in classes and that's what your financial aid is really based on, you should be able to get the very same financial aid eligibility that you would otherwise. So there's no difference between enrolling in a class online versus a class in person. There are robust offering of services for financial aid advisement. So I strongly recommend, I will actually find those resources and put it in the chat, where you can still meet with financial aid advisors, get dedicated one-on-one sessions to address any of your concerns. And the financial aid office also transitioned right before the pandemic. It was actually very good timing, where all of the documents that normally would require you to come in person to submit, all of that was transitioned to a virtual environment where you can submit your documents remotely. So I will share some of those resources in the chat, but effectively, there's no difference in your aid eligibility for enrolling in a class that's online versus in person.
I simply do not feel that it would be ideal to return to campus at this time due to a lack of space and other concerns outside campus. With this in mind, if there are students who share my concerns, what would you do? Would we be forced to return to campus? VP O'Reilly, do you want to take that one?
Again, there are so many classes that are being offered completely online. I would explore, what classes we have for the fall that are being offered online. And again, I would explore the e-permit option to see, you know, what courses, what additional online courses you could pick up that are being offered at other CUNY campuses.
Thank you. Will study abroad programs start to open up soon?
That's something we don't know at this point. You know, again, we're hoping, we know that you know, study abroad is such an important part of the educational experience. We don't know the status of study abroad programs for the fall. I don't believe that there's been an announcement from the university on that. But you know, we're waiting word as to what's going to happen with study abroad for the fall.
How are differently abled students with a disability and or a diagnosis factor into Brooklyn College reopening plans? So that has always been at the forefront of our minds. So students who have registered disabilities or are differently able can register through our Center for Students with Disabilities Center, and any accommodation that you would have gotten while you were on campus, you still will get. We're also having those conversations for those students that are taking classes online. If you need additional time to take tests, we'll be providing that as well. So in a nutshell, any accommodation that you would have gotten while we're on campus or pre-pandemic, we'll still be able to give to you. It may look a little bit differently, but you'll still get your same accommodation. For students who will commute via car, is parking available? Is there a permit needed? Alan, I believe, is on the call.
Okay, I will take that. Yeah, I'm Alan Gilbert. I'm the Senior Vice President for Finance and Administration. If we have availability in our parking lot, we will be able to sell permits to students. You know, the challenge is going to be the timing of it. Our lot is generally pretty heavy during peak hours, you know, less so in the afternoons. We will keep that on our radar, and we will touch base with people, you know, as we know more information.
Thank you. How would athletics look for incoming students or sophomores who have yet to go on campus? How would we be able to connect with coaches and such? Interested in team. So any students who are interested in team or more interested, they can contact Alex Lang. He's the associate director. Like I talked about before, we still have to get approval from CUNY for our return to athletics plan. But if that plan gets approved, then our recruitment period will begin. And so Alex Lang, someone just put his email address in the chat. You can reach out to him to kind of stay abreast of campus athletics. What harm does unvaccinated people pose to vaccinated people on campus? Also, how does one apply for religious exemption? Carrie?
Okay, so I will defer the question of how to apply for exemption back to Student Affairs. However, I'll take the question about unvaccinated individuals. So, you know, vaccines are still being rolled out. We only opened up the vaccine to 12 to 15-year-olds last week. Oh my gosh. And as of today, you know, there's only a little over 1/3 of the US population is fully vaccinated. Science tells us that we need, you know, herd immunity is really it's going to be very difficult to get to. And that's what is needed to prevent any kind of ongoing pandemic, the way that we're experiencing it in the past 12 months. And we don't have a lot of information as to how long vaccines will continue to provide protection for individuals. There's that. There's also the fact that, you know, we have breakthrough cases among vaccinated individuals. While the vaccine is 2 of them are considered highly effective, 1 of them less so, that the Johnson & Johnson is less effective. They are all effective, have been shown to be all effective in reducing the severity of disease, and then we're also still learning about whether vaccinated individuals can transmit asymptomatically or otherwise to other people. I guess I would say that the bigger concern is with unvaccinated population, that unless we have a large swath of the population being immune, either because they've recovered in the last 3 months from a COVID case or because they're vaccinated, we will continue, and with the globalization that is today, and the diversity of our community, and diversity of the United States, and our love for travel, we will continue to see variants pop up, and we don't know if those variants are going to impact or challenge the effectiveness of the vaccines that we have in our hands right now. And the faster we can get more people vaccinated and protected, the better chances we have of reducing that risk, for whether they're an unvaccinated 2-year-old or a vaccinated 75-year-old at home, but who may not have full immune system response to the vaccine. So it can continue to pose a risk beyond our campus walls, and we will, while it's not fully mandated now, we're going to continue to strongly urge everyone to get vaccinated. They have been shown to be safe. They have very high effectiveness. You know, sometimes seasonal flu vaccines continue to be acceptable and really reduce morbidity and mortality in the population, even at 50%. So we, you know, even if they're 50% effective, we still, public health professionals are going to tell you it's the best way to protect yourself and the people that you love, as well as the broader community.
In terms of the religious exemption, like I said, health programs will manage that. So if you have a religious exemption, you would file that through health programs who will be responsible for tracking if we go the route of mandating vaccines. We have about 14 minutes left and about 6 pages of questions. So we're going to try to get through as many as we possibly can. Who's going to enforce that students are vaccinated? Those who don't can't get vaccinated until that affects their registration. So like I said, that we manage through health programs. The process that we have in place right now for mandated MMR is if students do not submit their MMR results, or they do not have an exemption on file, they will be removed from their classes. I'm not sure if that's going to be the same process for COVID. We don't know just yet, but it may mimic that MMR process. So stay tuned for that. Will gyms be available? No decision as of yet. Hopefully we'll have more information about that over the summer. Will there be a way to know what the layout of the class would be before we enroll? For example, if we'll be in class for tests only, it'll be more convenient because personally, after this year, we need to work for your family and well-being has become a prime problem. So I'm gonna try to take that one real quick. I don't think that we're gonna have layouts of all classes available, but before you actually step foot in class, Carrie and her team will make sure that the space is adequately spaced so that it's safe based on the capacity and the airflow. Carrie, do you wanna add anything else to that?
No, I think that's it. But you should know that we'll be sure to notify people of what our planning assumptions are. You know, our safety margins are we're really being conservative and beyond the 6-foot on center planning to ensure that there's adequate space for every person to do their, take their class in person safely.
Okay. Question, how can you upload your photo for ID card? Chief Wentz.
Yes, contact our office. Either email me directly at donald@brooklyn.cuny.edu or my deputy director, Ursula C. at brooklyn.cuny.edu. and we'll guide you through the process.
Will there be monthly COVID testing? We do not know. While that announcement went out about the mandated vaccinations, that's about all we know right now. So stay tuned as we get more guidance from CUNY and from the state. We will let you know what's going to be required. Will you take temperatures? I believe Carrie answered that earlier. We're not currently taking temperatures at all. Given the CD recommendation that those who are vaccinated don't need to wear masks, how will this apply for professors, for students? Carrie?
For now, masks are required by everyone, indoors and outdoors, regardless of vaccination status or title.
Are all the students required to be vaccinated who wish to return in the fall? So like I said, stay tuned. Right now, the vaccination that we're hearing that's coming from the state is only for those students who are taking classes in person. But stay tuned for more information on that. Do you plan on changing the mask guidelines in accordance with the new CDC guidelines? What about mask mandates? I think Carrie just answered that. Right as of right now, masks are required for everyone, but it is a moving target. As we get more information, we update our policy, so stay tuned. If the vaccine is mandated for students, will the same apply for faculty and staff? Furthermore, since the vaccine is still being offered for emergency authorization reasons to study long-term side effects until 2023, how will students who are not anti-vaccine supporters but skeptical for that reason be considered? Will PCR swab tests be implemented in any way? So just really quickly, the mandate that came down was only for students taking classes in person. There is no current mandate in terms of faculty and staff. That question is being considered right now. I would say wait until the summer. As we get more information, you'll know. But right now, the mandate that came down is only for students that are taking in-person classes. I think that's all the questions that I see.
I'll just say something about PCR tests. Currently, if someone is through the health screening, questions are asked about travel, international travel, or exposure to a positive case, or feeling unwell. In some of these situations that return a no access token, the campus does require that a negative test be provided prior to returning to campus. So we do rely on PCR testing. It is not something that is, we don't have an ongoing periodic testing regimen that's required. It's more situational. And a reminder that CUNY has an agreement with Health and Hospital to provide priority testing, which means there's no wait, no line, no registration required. You can just go to any of the Health and Hospital locations, including downstate, to obtain a test.
All right, so I'm going to try to keep up with the chat a little bit, try to answer some of these questions that I'm seeing coming through. So there was a question about, if your classes are only offered online. That if none of your classes are offered online, but you're set to graduate, what you should do. I believe Lillian O'Reilly's suggestion was to contact the department chair or look for alternatives to figure out what types of classes and modalities are available for you to complete. She also mentioned the possibility of doing e-permit, but it's really specific to your case. That's why it's important for you to reach out to the department, depending on the number and types of credits that you need in order to graduate.
You mind if I step in for a second? Because that was my question.
Okay.
So I'm a computer science, and a computer science department at Brooklyn College is very strict on guidelines, which is even like over tallies, such as I'm a senior, so I only have 6 classes in total left for my senior year in fall and spring. So the thing is, when I look for e-permits, being that it's already late in the semester, there aren't any classes open that can substitute for the classes I want to take. And also, I don't plan on taking the vaccine, so then I won't be able to go in person. That's kind of like the issue I'm facing. So I'm just trying to see like if are you gonna add more spaces open, or are teachers gonna add more classes that are online? I don't, you know.
One of the things you should do, Samuel, immediately, if you haven't done it already, is try to get on the wait list for any courses you might need. That would be the first thing. I also strongly urge you to please reach out to Dean Suarez in the School of Natural and Behavioral Studies and explain your predicament to her.
All right, yeah, I already registered for classes for the fall, but majority of them, all of them are online. So then that's that. But I also will reach out to the dean.
Yes,
just
please.
Like you said.
Please.
So if you're all set for the fall, you should be good to go. Everything that we talk about today could be totally different for the spring. So I would say take it a semester at a time. Okay, we got some additional questions to come in. Through what channel should we look out for new information on vaccine guidelines? President Anderson has been putting out regular communications that talks about it, so be on the lookout for those. And she's been giving up-to-date information on everything, including vaccinations, returning to campus, things like that. Can we have a brief explanation on how to do the e-permit system for those who aren't provided with an online course for a certain class?
Sure. As a matter of fact, I was just getting the link to put into the chat. You could go online to fill out the e-permit application. So I'm going to put the information in the chat.
Thank you. Will laptops be available for staff as well? I'm looking at VP Gilbert, but I know the answer to that is yes.
Yes, that is correct. Please, email, speak to your supervisor and email device requests, all one word, at brooklyn.cuny.edu. Our IT team will review. We have laptops, we have Chromebooks, we have iPads, and we have Apple Books, and depending on the business need, we'll send out the appropriate device, and we will ship it to individuals. There's no need to come in.
VP Jackson, you're on mute.
I did well the whole session, and the final thing, I didn't unmute. So I didn't see any more questions. So just wanted to say thank you all for participating. Keep the questions coming. As the questions come in, we take a look at them. You always provide us things that maybe we haven't thought about. So I believe Marcus is also tracking all of the questions, and we'll be making this presentation available online if you want to go back and review it. Also, there's going to be another session tomorrow at 9 a.m. for those who are not able to attend today. Just want to thank you all for your questions. I know this is a trying time for everybody, faculty, staff, and students. As we continue to say, it's a moving target. As we know more information, we'll roll it out throughout the summer, but keep the questions coming. In general, if you have a question about anything, feel free to contact Student Affairs at studentaffairs@brooklyn.cuny.edu. Aaron and USG, as well as GSO, has been doing a good job of trying to keeping their students involved as well. And so look to them if you have questions as well. With that, I just want to say good luck on your finals. Keep the questions coming, and we hope to see you on campus one day soon when we're able to do it safely. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Okay, someone asked for the device link. I just dropped it in the chat, so I'll leave the session open for a few moments if you want to take note of it. Thanks, everyone.
This is where we turn the forum over to you. So I haven't seen many questions coming through the chat, but now is the time where you can ask any question that you may have to any of the panelists. So Jonathan writes, so what is the plan for students who have a break in between classes or even have online classes in between in-person classes? That kind of goes back to that previous question that was asked about private study spaces. So that's one of the reasons that we're looking to make that available so that students could then reserve a space in between the classes so they have some place to go. Also, we particularly live in, a pretty vibrant, community. So I'm going to assume that there's going to be places around the college that are also open. But in terms of on campus, we will have those spaces available for students. Okay, we got a question that came in. What is being done to address the needs of differently abled and neurodivergent students with regard to accessibility, inclusivity, and educational quality? So that is a question regarding the services that are provided through our Center for Students with Disability Services. So any accommodation that students are afforded, those will be granted. That's the process that's happening now, even with online courses, and that will be accommodated in the fall as well. The key is to make sure that you register with the Center for Students, the center in advance so that we can start working out the accommodations. The accommodations may look a little different depending on if the course is online or in person, but we will work with you to make sure that you get the accommodations that you need to successfully complete the courses. Next question. Doreen, will clubs be allowed to meet on campus in the student center in our club room? We have not made a determination about that as of yet. That is a conversation that we will be having this summer to determine what types of programs and activities will be allowed on campus in person. So if you follow the news, you can see that things are changing very quickly. So we're taking into account all the changes that are happening on the local and federal and state level. And then we've been making determinations over the summer to make sure that if we are to have programs that we're able to do it in a safe manner. So stay tuned for that. Will there still be a tuition fee increase in the fall for students that aren't NYC residents when some of us had to move home due to various reasons? I will turn that over to either VP O'Reilly or VP Gilbert. Who wants that one?
I'll start. I know that during the pandemic, students who had to move out of state or moved out of state was still charged New York State tuition if they were New York State residents prior to the pandemic. Alan, do you know if there have been any updates on that for fall?
I've not heard of anything because this universe goes through residency status. Yasmin Ali is also here. She's in charge of student financial services. Again, it depends on what's in residency status. Yasmin, have you heard anything through your CUNY groups in terms of residency?
Good morning, everyone. And no, we haven't had any updates in terms of any specific increases based on residency. The residency rate that you are charged is based on what your residency is in the CUNY First system. And then, in terms of a general tuition increase, usually that's given to us by the university. And as of now, we have not heard of any increases at this time, but that can change.
Okay, just go back. We're reasonably certain there will not be a tuition increase as per this the governor's budget. Again, the Board of Trustees is meeting on June 7th, the CUNY Board of Trustees, to confirm that. We'll also ask our registrar to follow up with the university about the residency question. It's a very good question, and we will get back to everybody in future communications.
Next question, will alumni be able to come back and use the school facilities?
I'll take that one. Sorry about that. Yes, so I was responding to Jonathan's question in the chat, so I guess I could answer that one too. But in terms of alumni, at this point, our main focus is the instructional needs of our current students on the campus. So our priority now is to make sure that we provide a safe environment for our current students, staff, and faculty. As things progress and improve, our expectation is that we will further expand access to our campus to other important constituencies, But again, first thing first is our current students and current main people on our campus. In terms of Jonathan's questions, just quickly, the May Board of Trustees meeting is not covering the new budget and tuition for next year. The June meeting will be covering that. So I just want to clarify that. But Jonathan is correct. There is also a May meeting.
Thank you. Next question. Is there a possibility professors would allow someone to join online, even if it's in person? VP O'Reilly.
I'm going to ask Provost Lopes if she wouldn't mind responding to that question. Thank you, Provost Lopes.
Thank you. We're in the process of establishing guidelines for that, and we will have them, I hope, in place shortly.
Thank you. Will the enrollment center be open?
That is really a good question. In all probability, the Enrollment Services Center will not physically be open. Offices will be staffed, so students will be able to get services, and we will continue to expand the virtual presence of the Enrollment Services Center, so students will get the services they need.
Thank you. Let me see. As Provost Lopes' microphone was hard to hear, what was the answer about in-person classes with online students?
So let me try again. Let me try again. Is that better? Yeah, we're in the process of establishing guidelines for that. We want it to be fair and uniform across the campus, whether or not a student will be able to join online or not, and that will move forward in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you. Will we need to get vaccinated to attend in-person classes? So like I said, we're currently, waiting for guidance from CUNY regarding the mandated vaccinations. That process would be handled through health programs. If you remember when you first enrolled at Brooklyn College, you had to submit your mumps, measles, and rubella vaccination shots to that office. If it is mandated that students have to have vaccinations, it will be handled by that office. Similarly, as we do with MMR, if you're granted any type of exemption, for example, a religious or a medical related exemption, that office would also be able to work with you to let you know if you're exempted from submitting that. You won't have to report that to your faculty or staff. The health programs office would do that. We're not sure about the guidance in terms of, the results if you don't submit it, but just to kind of equate it back to MMR, for students who don't comply with the MMR mandate, if you don't submit those in time, you will be dropped from your classes. Like I said, we don't have much guidance right now from CUNY regarding that mandate, but we'll keep you posted throughout the summer. So if you think that you're, will be eligible for an exemption, the health programs office will be the office that you want to contact. But hold tight, wait until we get more guidance from CUNY in terms of how that's going to look. Let's say, hello, thank you for restating my question for those who are not able to attend yesterday. Below is one question that was originally a suggestion and was shared on the pre-session forum. Will opportunities for students to recover and or make up what had been sacrificed be considered to avoid any gap between students who graduated before and started college after the pandemic to be considered? The question being asked is based on concerns regarding the decline in educational quality during the pandemic and how it has affected students who looked up to Brooklyn College as an example of a transformative, distinctive, and affordable education to students from all backgrounds. VP Lopes.
So there are a couple of things there in the question. So the first is we are offering summer courses for students to make up classes that they feel they did not do well in or failed due to the stresses of the pandemic as well. So the summer schedule is out and available. We'll also be offering a robust winter term for students as a way to make up those classes. We have had in many classes, based on requests of faculty and availability, in-class learning assistants and teaching assistants, assisting students specifically, and working intimately with faculty on that coursework so that they can work carefully and closely with students. We've had as well extra in-person, in-class tutoring in online classes as well, particularly for difficult and high failure rate courses that's been going on. So there's been a lot of the college and a lot of investment by the college in helping students make up and also succeed the first time in their courses in this online environment as well. And we will continue to do that through the fall by helping students as much as we can with tutoring in particular, and with having sections of courses available for students so that they can take those courses that they need in these high failure rate areas in particular. And that's what students seem to be most concerned about in terms of my email that I'm getting.
Thank you. Next question. How soon can I request an exemption application? Hold tight. Like I said, we're still waiting for guidance from CUNY in terms if that mandate is actually going to be applied at Brooklyn College. So as soon as we get more information about that, we'll communicate to all students what the process will be to submit the vaccinations as well as to request any exemptions. So pay attention to President Anderson's messages that will be going out from now until all over the summer.
I just want to go back to what I said as well. So I'm reading this from Austin Drago's question carefully. And one thing that Brooklyn College really did was provide extra supports during the pandemic that were not available on other campuses to really help students with their online courses. And we take very seriously the transformative power of our education and our investment in students. And that's what we're here for, 100%, to help you succeed. And the programs that were developed and that we put in place, we're very responsive to that based on student success in these high failure rate courses that we're seeing, much better than anticipated in an online forum because of those supports that are there and that we put in place. So I hope they helped you specifically. And I'm sorry for all difficulties that this pandemic has caused students and faculty and staff alike.
All right, so we're not going to hold you, but hopefully we're able to answer all the questions that you have. If you have additional questions or you think of things after this session is over, we will be posting a copy of this session online along with the questions and the answers. But also, if you have further questions, feel free to contact Student Affairs at studentaffairs@brooklyn.cuny.edu or let student government know as well. We'll be working very closely over the summer to make sure that we communicate all updates and status movements as we get them from now over the summer, all the way up into the beginning of fall classes. In the chat, you'll see the forum for questions, suggestions. Feel free to use that at any time and make sure that you ask us any question. No question is a dumb question. If it's your question, 9 times out of 10, 5 other people have the same question. All right, so I want to thank you all for participating with us today. I want to say good luck with the rest of your finals, and hopefully we'll be able to see you at some point in the fall on campus safely. And as a reminder, please go out and get vaccinated. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.